Hello, welcome back to another Sunday School Bible class. Today's lesson is entitled Mount Sinai and the Mosaic Covenant. We have learned how God freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, delivered them from Pharaoh's army by opening up the sea and allowing them to pass right through, and while visibly leading them through the wilderness with a moving pillar of cloud or fire, miraculously provided for them with food by letting it rain bread from heaven every night, which they called manna, and gave them water from a rock. In this week's lesson, although we are going to see what happened when God gave the Israelites His law, we are not going to study His law until another lesson. This law has come to be known as the Law of Moses. God led the Israelites to a place in the wilderness where they encamped at the bottom of a mountain called Mt Sinai. God called Moses up the mountain and told him that on the third day, He, God, was going to come down on the mountain in a very dramatic, spectacular way in front of all the Israelites, and God was going to proclaim His 10 Commandments. Moses went down the mountain and told all the people that God was going to come down that mountain on the third day, and they must be nice and clean and not to touch the mountain on that day or they will die. On the third day, when God came down on the mountain shook, quaked, and smoked. The sky was filled with lightning and it thundered. There was also an exceedingly loud sound of a trumpet. Suddenly they heard the voice of God proclaim the 10 Commandments. He said, "I am the Lord your God. You shall not have any other gods but me only. You shall not make unto yourself any statue or idol of any one or anything to worship it, bow down to it, or adore it like it is a god. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember to keep the Sabbath day holy. You must not work on the Sabbath day. Honor your father and mother, that you may live a long life. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not lie. You shall not want what is not yours." By this awesome display of power, God impressed upon the people that He was truly the only God with all the power, and that He had indeed called Moses to be the leader of His people. The people were so afraid that they promised to hear Moses rather than have God speak directly to them. God then told Moses to come up the mountain and gave him more laws concerning how the people are supposed to govern themselves in the community. These laws ensure that there is order in the community and that all the people get treated fairly. The laws that God gave to Moses would punish murderers, thieves, cheats, and troublemakers. These types of laws were to create a safe and crime-free community, as well as a nation of holy people, not enslaved by all kinds of sinful habits. Other nations would see this, and by this come to know God also. When Moses came down the mountain, he explained all the laws to the Israelites, and they agreed to live by these laws. Moses wrote all these laws in a book, and this agreement that he made with the people and with God to live by was called the Mosaic Covenant. The word covenant means a serious and sacred agreement or promise that God would do certain things for the people, and the people would obey all of God's laws. This is the covenant that the people made with God at Mount Sinai, and as a sign of this covenant or agreement, Moses offered an animal sacrifice to God. He then sprinkled the blood of the covenant on the people and said, Behold the blood of the covenant." After this, Moses went up the mountain one more time. During a 40-day period, God gave Moses instructions for a structure to be built called the tabernacle, showing Moses the actual vision of what this structure looked like. God also gave Moses instruction for the proper way for the Israelites to worship him by ordaining certain people priests and offering certain sacrifices while in this structure called the tabernacle. After God gave Moses all these religious laws, God wrote down the 10 Commandments on stone tablets and gave them to Moses. While Moses was up in the mountain receiving these special instructions, the people down below started behaving very badly. They were breaking many of the commandments that they had just promised to keep. They decided they wanted to make a god of gold that they could see and worship. They took some of the gold that they were given to by the Egyptians, and they made a golden calf and began to worship it. Worshiping anything or anyone other than God is called idolatry. In one of the commandments, God had told them not to worship other gods or make idols, and that is exactly what they did. Soon they began to get naked and drunk and to commit other sins as well. God, knowing what the people were doing, got so angry, he told Moses to get down the mountain and that he wanted to kill the people for breaking the very agreement that they had just made with him. When Moses pleaded with God, God listened and did not kill the people. When Moses went down the mountain and saw what the people were doing, he became so angry that he broke the tables of the 10 Commandments that were written by God. He then ordered all the people who were on the Lord's side to come to him. About 3,000 people refused to side with God and Moses ordered them killed that very day. When Moses told the people that they had committed a very serious sin, the people mourned and were very sad for offending God the way they did. Then Moses went up the mountain again, where God wrote the 10 Commandments on the tables of stone a second time, and let Moses see his glory. When Moses came down, his face glowed from seeing the glory of God. Moses reminded the people of God's promise to bring them to the promised land, and the people were encouraged and happy. In our upcoming lesson, we're going to learn the different parts of the law of Moses, including the 10 Commandments. These laws and practices will be carried out for the rest of the Old Testament, so you don't want to miss the next few lessons. See you next time. Bye-bye.